1978. Halloween, titled on screen as John Carpenter's Halloween, is a 1978 American slasher film directed and scored by John Carpenter, co-written with producer Deborah Hill, and starring Donald Pleasance and Jamie Lee Curtis in her film debut. The plot tells about a mental patient who was committed to a sanitarium for murdering his teenage sister on Halloween night when he was 6 years old. 15 years later, he escapes and returns to his hometown, where he stalks a female babysitter and her friends, while under pursuit by his psychiatrist. Trick or Treat, 2007. Trick or Treat is a 2007 American anthology horror comedy film written and directed by Michael Dougherty and produced by Bryan Singer. The film stars Dylan Baker, Rochelle Aites, Anna Paquin and Brian Cox. It relates to 4 Halloween horror stories with a common element in them: Sam, a mysterious child trick-or-treater wearing shabby orange footy pajamas with a burlap sack over his head. The character makes an appearance in each of the stories whenever one of the other characters breaks a Halloween tradition. Edward Scissorhands, 1990. Edward Scissorhands is a 1990 American fantasy romance film directed by Tim Burton. It was produced by Burton and Denise DeNovi, and written by Caroline Thompson from a story by her and Burton. Johnny Depp plays an artificial humanoid named Edward, an unfinished creation who has scissor blades instead of hands. The young man is taken in by a suburban family and falls in love with their teenage daughter Kim, Winona Ryder. Ghostbusters, 1984. Ghostbusters is a 1984 American supernatural comedy film directed by Ivan Reitman and written by Dan Aykroyd and Harold Ramis. It stars Bill Murray, Aykroyd, and Ramis as Peter Venkman, Ray Stantz, and Egon Spangler, a trio of eccentric parapsychologists who start a ghost-catching business in New York City. The film also stars Sigourney Weaver and Rick Moranis, and features Annie Potts, William Atherton, and Ernie Hudson in supporting roles. The Craft, 1996. The Craft is a 1996 American supernatural horror film directed by Andrew Fleming and distributed by Columbia Pictures. It was written by Andrew Fleming and Peter Filardi and stars Robin Tunney, Theresa Bloch, Neve Campbell, and Rachel True. Its story follows a group of 4 outcast teenage girls at a fictional Los Angeles parochial high school who pursue witchcraft for their own gain but soon encounter negative repercussions. Scream, 1996. Scream is a 1996 American slasher film directed by Wes Craven and written by Kevin Williamson. Released on December 20th, it follows the character of Sidney Prescott Campbell, a high school student in the fictional town of Woodsboro, California, who becomes the target of a mysterious killer in a Halloween costume known as Ghostface. The film combines black comedy and whodunit mystery with the violence of the slasher genre to satirize the cliches of the horror movie genre popularized in films such as Halloween, 1978, Friday the 13th, 1980, and Craven's own A Nightmare on Elm Street, 1984. Scream was considered unique at the time of its release for featuring characters who were aware of real-world horror films and openly discussed the cliches that the film attempted to subvert. Practical Magic, 1998. Practical Magic is a 1998 American romantic comedy fantasy film based on the 1995 novel of the same name by Alice Hoffman. Bullock and Kidman play sisters Sally and Gillian Owens, who have always known they were different from other people. They are witches. Raised by their aunts after their parents' death, the sisters grew up in a household that was anything but normal. Their aunts fed them brownies for breakfast and taught them the uses of practical magic. But being a member of the Owens family carries a curse. The men they fall in love with are doomed to an untimely death. Now adult women with very different personalities, the quiet Sally and the fiery Gillian, must use all of their powers to fight the family curse and a swarm of supernatural forces that could take away all the Owens' lives. The Nightmare Before Christmas, 1993. The Nightmare Before Christmas, also known as Tim Burton's The Nightmare Before Christmas, is a 1993 American stop-motion animated musical dark fantasy film directed by Henry Selick and produced and conceived by Tim Burton. It tells the story of Jack Skellington, the king of Halloween Town, who stumbles through a portal to Christmas Town and becomes obsessed with celebrating the holiday. Danny Elfman wrote the songs and score, and provided the singing voice of Jack. The principal voice cast also includes Chris Sarandon, Catherine O'Hara, William Hickey, Ken Page, Paul Rubens, Glenn Shaddix, and Ed Ivory. Sleepy Hollow, 1999. Sleepy Hollow is a 1999 American Gothic supernatural horror film directed by Tim Burton. It is a film adaptation loosely based on Washington Irving's 1820 short story The Legend of Sleepy Hollow, and stars Johnny Depp and Christina Ricci, with Miranda Richardson, Michael Gambon, Casper Van Dien, and Jeffrey Jones in supporting roles. The plot follows police constable Ichabod Crane, Depp, sent from New York City to investigate a series of murders in the village of Sleepy Hollow by a mysterious headless horseman. The Silence of the Lambs, 1991. The Silence of the Lambs is a 1991 American psychological horror film directed by Jonathan Demme from a screenplay written by Ted Talley, adapted from Thomas Harris' 1988 novel of the same name. The film stars Jodie Foster as Clarice Starling, a young FBI trainee who is pulled out from her training to apprehend a serial killer, known only as Buffalo Bill, who skins his female victims' corpses. For this she has to create a psychological profile and seeks the advice of the imprisoned Dr. Hannibal Lecter, a brilliant psychiatrist and cannibalistic serial killer. Anthony Hopkins plays Lecter and Ted Levine plays Bill. The Shining, 1980. The Shining is a 1980 psychological horror film produced and directed by Stanley Kubrick and co-written with novelist Diane Johnson. The film is based on Stephen King's 1977 novel of the same name and stars Jack Nicholson, Shelley Duvall, Scatman Crothers, and Danny Lloyd. The film's central character is Jack Torrance, Nicholson, an aspiring writer and recovering alcoholic who accepts a position as the off-season caretaker of the isolated historic Overlook Hotel in the Colorado Rockies. Wintering over with Jack are his wife, Wendy Torrance, Duvall, and young son, Danny Torrance, Lloyd. Danny is gifted with a shining, psychic abilities that enable him to see into the hotel's horrific past. The hotel cook, Dick Lauren Crothers, also has this ability and is able to communicate with Danny telepathically. The hotel had a previous winter caretaker who went insane and killed his family and himself. After a winter storm leaves the Torrances snowbound, Jack's sanity deteriorates due to the influence of the supernatural forces that inhabit the hotel, placing his wife and son in danger.